Okay, I see it's 9 o'clock, so I think I'll call the January 20th, 2021 meeting to order and remind everybody that this meeting is occurring via video conference, and we are being recorded. So good morning, everyone. Just a few dates to remind you about. I know that an email was just sent out regarding town meeting dates, and I see Carmen's here, so she'll probably say more about that as the morning goes along. As you may know, the caucus has been set for the 25th at 7 o'clock p.m. Uncharacteristically, this is going to be held for the first time outside in the parking lot of Harvey Wheeler. We'll hope that it's not snowing. There is a snow date the following night if necessary. We need a quorum of 25 to hold this meeting, and we will keep it as efficient as possible to fulfill the obligations of the caucus. We did try to get some legislation passed before the end of the year and into the beginning of the year to avoid this, but we were unable to do that, as other towns were that were looking at that as an option, just because of all the activity that was going on up at the State House at the end of the year. So here we are. This will be a day to remember in history in terms of having a caucus outside, and dress warmly is my advice for those who will be there. So this morning, I think I will ask that again, you particularly note warrant articles that you're expecting to bring forward, and if there are some pressing vacancies that are interfering with you keeping your quorum, please note that as well. So I think I'll begin with Bill Kameza.
Thanks, Linda. I represent the Tax Fairness Committee, and our focus right now is on the fact that the state legislature did not pass, I'll put it this way, they did not act on our petition for home rule in providing for this tax exemption for seniors to be made permanent, or until the town would decide against it. As a result, we're going to have to prepare a warrant article, I assume, with two possibilities. One is that it will get passed, and therefore the town meeting will confirm that we want this to be one of our bylaws. Or second, we'll have to have something provisional, because previously this exemption for seniors, and it constitutes about 40 seniors who have been means tested, and it's about $150,000. We will have to find some way of funding it, because the third year has now run out until the legislation is passed at the State House. So that's our big concern, and it's something we're going to be working on the next couple of weeks. That's it, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
May I address that briefly, Linda?
Yes, please.
I think you're going to actually need two warrant articles, because if the legislation does pass, you'll need a warrant article to ratify that, the home rule legislation. If it doesn't pass, in fact, the authority of the town meeting gives for the selectmen to petition for home rule legislation does expire with the legislative session. So that will have to be reauthorized. So you'll have to put both those articles in, since you don't know which one you will move, and then whichever one is necessary, you will move, and the other one you will simply not move.
That makes sense, Carmen. We've been kicking around whether it be one warrant article with part A and B and one gets removed, or as you should say, two warrant articles. That makes sense.
Just make it two. It's less complicated for me, because otherwise I have to split it. So
okay, that sounds good.
Thanks.
Linda, this is Eric. Could I jump in just for a second on that as follow-up on this topic?
Yes, go ahead.
Eric Van Loon for the Tax Relief Committee. Will, I've been meaning to be in touch with you and Judy Terry A way has been found around the $150,000 shortfall that will very likely be channeled initially to the Tax Relief Committee and then given to the Hugh Cargill Trust in order to make sure that none of those 40-something families end up having a really difficult time when tax bills come due. So it doesn't change the situation. Obviously, the state legislature did not approve our home rule petition and all of the things that we'll have to do in town meeting, but there will not be financial hardship for those families.
Eric, that was a big concern, and I'm delighted to hear that. That's a big relief, certainly for those families and for us too. That's very good. Thank you.
Eric, while you have the floor, are there any other things you'd like to report from your committee? That's pretty monumental right there.
Well, just very briefly, as of we send out the annual request for donations each year in usually in November. We were again have been successful so far. We'll be sending a further backup reminder request to some individuals, but we currently have a balance that will enable us to meet the full obligation this year for the tax relief applies not only to seniors, but also single family moms, people who are means tested. And we do have sufficient funding from the appeals to cover that.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the town donors' response to your request that went out. That's terrific. Okay, I think I'll go to Paul next. Paul Bain.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So the NMI StarMet Reuse Committee, our main activity over the last couple of months has been on putting together our report to the Select Board. In that process, we've also engaged several of the town committees in informal briefings to get some feedback. We had the report posted in draft form. We've got some comments on that. And now I think as of today, the draft final is going to be posted on the website, and we'll be inviting a public comment on that. So just really briefly, it outlines not a plan, but a master plan, and then various options. But importantly, it presents to the Select Board a variety of issues and recommendations on how to tackle some of those issues. Two of the main ones being risk communication and understanding liabilities of potentially acquiring a Superfund site. So it's all covered in detail in the report, and we'll invite comments from all committees and people on that report. The plan is to get that to the Select Board in early March.
Thank you, Paul. Do you have a date for the public forum?
We don't have a date yet. We've got to get all those dates together once it's posted. And
okay, okay, thank you. Rick, good morning.
Morning. So the Housing Authority, we have a full board. Our latest fill-in for some of the positions that were vacated is Charles Phillips. So we're back to a full board. We do, however, because we've had 2 recent appointments to fill vacated seats, we have 3 elections coming up this year. One is the normal 5-year rotation, and but we also have 2 additional elections to fill positions, one for a 1-year position and one for a 2-year position. They're both currently filled by appointees. I'm pretty sure at least one of them is running again, but I'm not convinced both are. So, but we do have some interest in running, I think. So I think we'll be good. Let's see. Another development in the election world of housing authorities is that there is a new law that's passed and signed by the governor that will be effective in 90 days or so. So after town elections, I believe that will be requiring towns to have a tenant board member appointed by the select board. So, but we currently have a tenant board member that was elected by the town, so I think we'll qualify for a waiver. That's Edward Lerner in his position. His term isn't up until 2024, so I don't think we'll be subject to that law. We should be able to get a waiver every year until 2024. If that makes any sense or to everyone. We also are looking for a new executive director. The job has been posted on several sites, Mass Narrow, our site on the website, different publications. And applications are due February 8th. We have a search committee meeting February 11th to do the initial screening of those applications when they're in. There could be quite a few because it seems we by posting it on Indeed, I think we ended up we're going to get at least 25 applications from Indeed. But so there'll be more to report on that in February. We're still working on repositioning our 18 federal units into local ownership. And the last step of that is to finalize the pilot agreement with the town. And I don't know yet if we're on the schedule for the next select board meeting on the 25th, Linda, but maybe our pilot agreement is on that agenda. You might know more than I do about that, but I might be seeing
That is likely to be confirmed later today.
Okay, so we might see you then. The Commonwealth Avenue house that we'll be building on the Commonwealth Avenue side of the Grove Park. We're currently working to get architecture and engineering proposals for that. And that project is kind of right on the cusp of certain procurement rules. So we're kind of hoping that we end up on the good side of procurement rules and not in the complicated procurement section of that. But we're working with the DHCD House Doctor program for selecting architects. So we should be clear of the designer selection rules. It's just a question of making sure we follow the right procurement to get the architect going on that project. And I think that's about it.
Quite a bit. Thank you very much. Tom.
Thank you, Linda. CPC voted to approve recommendations on 15 applications last evening. So we're pleased to have that work behind us, and
messages received from 43367.
We will now begin to prepare the draft warrant article. And the total recommendation allocation is about $1.769 million, and a lot of good work by the committee. So thank you, and we've got a full group and a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, Tom Matthews.
Good morning, everyone. Tom Matthews from the Board of Assessors. We are kind of gearing up for abatement season, which starts on February 1st. So we are right now collecting application from townsfolk who feel their taxes are not aligned. I was in at the board yesterday signing some paperwork, and good news, we only have about 10 or 15 of about 7,000 parcels of people that feel their taxes are not in alignment. So that's great news. Our staff is doing an excellent job. Our board recently lost a member who is moving out of town. So we still have quorum, but just barely. So if you know anyone who's interested in getting involved, we could use a new member on the Board of Assessors. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see, Carlin.
Good morning, Carlin Reed. I'm the chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee. Briefly, we will not be preparing a warrant article on the PEG Enterprise Fund. That will be done by our deputy town manager, Kate Hodges, who has also informed me that she'll be presenting it at some point to our committee after it appears before the town preview meeting. Second, we have 2 vacancies on our 7-member board, And 2 of those people are going to be rolling off, I suspect, at the end of this term, which means we'll be looking for someone else to help us at least fill quorum. So that's a little bit of an issue with us. Third, we did finalize at our last meeting our committee's goals for the 2020-2021 year. It has not yet been posted, but I'm going to be getting on that very soon. And finally, we've had a couple interesting complaints regarding the Comcast cable TV service. So on our agenda for the February 11th meeting will be a discussion on the renewal process for the cable TV license. It's a preliminary discussion, but part of it involves looking at complaints that have been filed with our committee and with the town regarding cable service. That's it.
Thank you, Carlin. Okay, Carol Ann.
Hi, Carol Ann Hannon. I'm the chair of the Council on Aging Board. I don't have a whole lot to report today. First Parish distributed 30 buckets of sand provided by the COA to Concord seniors, and they've lost their source of 5-gallon pails. So if anyone has a source of cheap 5-gallon pails, please let the COA know. The gift shop is also going to sell items online to try to raise funds because they use the money for their activities. So that's it for activities, but we've lost one of our board members. We still are short of 2 associate board members. So if you know of anyone who would like to serve on the COA board, please let me know. Thank you.
So Caroline, I'll just comment, thank you for bringing back thank you for bringing back the tax assistance issue for seniors, because I've subsequently seen that at least some additional consideration was given to help the large number of people who depend on that service. So thank you for bringing that back. Nat.
Thank you. Nat Welch, Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Committee. Had to work my mute button quickly. We don't plan to have a warrant article for this year. At least we're not planning one. Our last meeting was canceled due to technical difficulties. Thank you, Zoom, and appreciate the really hard work the town staff did to try and keep us alive, but we're unable to do so. We've added a 6th member, Dorcas Miller, who actually I think served on the planning board many years ago. She's an abutter to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So we now have 6 to 7 members on the committee. We finalized most of the fencing plans for the last half mile of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, which was a 2.5-hour meeting that we held in December. Let's see, I'm pleased to report that the bridge over in Neshoba Brook, which is part of the Route 2 bridge construction, the girders are up. And so that's moving along very nicely. Finally, the committee is sending a letter to the town on Junction Park at the request of a number of residents to review the design of the park. I understand a couple of other West Concord-based committees will probably be sending something as well. But there's some concern about the mix of bikers and walkers in that area. More to come on that. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mary?
Thanks, Linda. The Finance Committee has been very busy lately. We're beginning conversations with the schools and the town about the FY22 operating budget, which is totals about $90 million, and it's 80% of our total budget. So it's real money. We expected FY22 to be a challenge, and it is. The challenge we're facing is the town depends upon revenue from both the state and from local receipts being things like meals tax, occupancy, and these are coming in much lower than normal. State aid, we don't know what state aid will be yet, but last year it was level only because the state dipped into its rainy day fund. So we're still waiting to find out how much we're going to get from the state, and we're anticipating lower revenues from local receipts. Having said all that, I think we can still navigate to keep level services with a reasonable property tax increase because we have good reserves at the town. The place we're vulnerable, of course, is we're going to have to dip into free cash. We need to keep that at least 5% in order to keep our bond rating, and we're coming very, very close to that. But again, things are still in flux. We're looking at it closely, and we'll keep you posted as we go along. We have a full board. We're 15 members. Everybody is on board. They show up for meetings, which is incredible. And we already mentioned the warrant article we bring. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Tui. You're on mute, Tui. Could you? Okay.
I'm Tui Rogers, standing in for Tom Martin, Chairman of the Cultural Council. And probably for many of you, the same thing is happening to us. Much of what we'd anticipated last year has been pushed off into this year. We have 23 applications requesting a total of $11,755. We've had 3 meetings and we've been addressing those. Our budget is finalized 6,000 from the state, 2,000 from the town, and 400 from grant applications, so for a total of 8,400. So we are now somewhat delayed, but going into the process of reviewing all of these in the next few weeks. As I say, we've started the review and trying to apportion the monies accordingly. And I think that's really it. It's just been the COVID delays. Applications are a bit down, and there are a lot of questions out there for all of us.
Thank you, Tui. All right, Deb, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Deb Green. I'm chair of the Board of Health. This has been a very difficult, challenging year, as you can imagine. I think the 2 things that I would say is, one is that Concord is currently in the yellow risk category for COVID cases. I don't know if any of you follow the statistics on the Mass Department of Public Health website, but there is a COVID dashboard and you can see all the towns and what their risk category is. We were in a red risk category, and that was largely due to an outbreak at MCI Concord, where patients inmates are sort of closely housed, and so outbreaks are not surprising, but we are back down to a yellow. I think as of last week, we had about 63 current cases and people under investigation. The Public Health Department in Concord, Susan Rask, and Public Health Nurse Tricia McGeen are really working overtime 24/7 to track cases, close contacts, and get results to people. So it's an exhausting job, and they deserve a lot of credit. I think the other thing that's on everyone's mind is vaccine rollout. The state is still in phase 1. We do not know when phase 2 will begin and when the town will get a supply of vaccine to start vaccinations for people in the phase 2 category, such as people over age 75 and with 2 or more comorbidities. But I'm pleased to announce that the town vaccinated 420 first responders, that's fire, police, and EMS from Concord, and 5 other partner towns, including Bedford, Carlisle, Lincoln, Maynard, and Sudbury. The EMTs from Concord administered all of these vaccines, and some partner towns sent nurses and other staff to fill roles. So this was really a great collaborative effort, and I was glad to see that Concord took the lead on getting our first responders vaccinated. There are plans being made for future clinics, such as vaccinating the rest of the population in town. I know Emerson Hospital will be able to vaccinate some patients, and the medical offices affiliated with partners will be able to give some vaccine out. So I think that we probably starting in February will have an idea of where everyone else can start to get their vaccine. And then we also will try to actually go into places like Concord Housing Authority and Peter Buckley and Timothy Wheeler House and potentially vaccinate people in their residences. So I'm really excited we have a vaccine right now. Is happy to get the vaccine myself, and I'm really hoping everyone else can get immunized. I do not expect the Board of Health to have any warrant articles. I think we're really just too busy with COVID and public health issues. I think something that had been on the back burner for a while is tobacco control issues. We do have a tobacco control agent. We were able to get money from the state to hire someone part-time. And so her name is Erin Murphy. She is basically doing monthly inspections and just in our town and several other towns, and really just making sure, people are under compliance, so they understand the guidelines, and they have the permit. So I'm pleased that we have more inspections going on there. So that's it for now.
Keep up your strength.
Thank you.
Carmen.
Good morning, everybody. Town meeting will be in June this year, June 13th. The current plan is for it to be outdoors. If we get real lucky and everyone's vaccinated by June 13th, maybe we'll have it indoors, but I'm not holding my breath. The town meeting preview meeting is on Saturday, February 27th, and that'll be on Zoom, and the warrant will also open that day and be open for about 30 days. Warrant will close on Friday, March 26th, and everybody's draft warrant articles will be due by Friday, March 19th. So for that meeting on the 27th, it's not necessary to have a draft warrant article ready yet, but it would be great to be hearing from everybody about the topics that they intend to present in their warrant articles, just so that we all kind of begin to get our arms around what the town meeting warrant will look like this year. I am currently thinking that our town meeting will look a lot like last year's town meeting in terms of its procedures, if we are still at a COVID risk. But again, we're in a pretty fluid situation. So if it is looking less risky at that point, we will adapt our procedures to look more like they normally do. One other thing I want to mention for the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals for their articles this year, I understand that there's legislation in the pipeline that is going to change the quorum requirements on certain kinds of zoning bylaws which are intended to promote affordable housing. I don't know if that'll be enacted by the time we get to our town meeting, but it's something to keep an eye on if you aren't already. And of course, town council and I will be watching that as well. In this Zoom land that we're in, I remain available to any of you or any citizen who wants some help with a warrant article. Just send me an email at moderator@concordma.gov, and we'll get in touch and we can talk by phone or we can Zoom. So I'll be no less available than I normally am, COVID notwithstanding. Thank you all.
And you'll need to keep up your strengths too as the time frame here ramps up all the activity. So thank you, Carmen.
Oh, and actually one more thing about the caucus. I know that some people, including myself, have already pulled papers, nomination papers. So I'll already be on the ballot by nomination papers. So to the extent that anyone has already submitted nomination papers, that will make our caucus shorter outdoors in the dark in the parking lot.
In the cold.
Yeah.
All right. Sarah.
All right. So from the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee, a quick update or we'll follow up on Dr. Green's that the vaccination station is located at Concord Carlisle High School. Had a very successful rollout to the vaccination initiative. And so that was just great. The school is happy with how it went, and we're all pleased that everyone managed to get.
Thanks for the space.
Pardon? Yes,
Yeah.
it's great. And then in other news from the region, we are working on some asymptomatic testing initiatives. DESE and the Department of Public Health is proposing an asymptomatic pooled testing plan that we're looking forward to participating in. Details are forthcoming. And other than that, we had a nice budget presentation with the FinCom earlier this month, where Jared went over the main budget drivers, the governor's proposed budget, collective bargaining contracts, special education, and I don't know. And other than that, we're working hard on our diversity initiatives and have focused on our last meeting on diversity in hiring, and seen all of the work that's been done to recruit and retain a more diverse staff, and it's been some great successes there. Court? Is there anything?
Thank you, Sarah. Court Booth, Concord.
You've got a lot more on going on.
Concord School
Concord
Committee. Diversity and inclusion hiring practices is getting some attention right now. And the only other thing I would add to what Sarah said is that we expect to be talking with Concord town officials as well, because we believe there are some overlaps in our thinking about hiring practices and what might be happening on the town side. So we'll be looking for potential collaboration there. You may know that in regard to COVID, one final piece, and that is that we're doing symptomatic testing at the high school. Our nurses are capable of doing that, and we have a relationship with Broad, and we're also able to send students who are asymptomatic who want an immediate test directly to Cambridge, where they get pretty quick turnaround. So all of that's happening. And we are fully, what should I say, compliant with the state education commissioner's expectation for synchronous learning. So there's a lot of pressure on districts around the Commonwealth for more synchronous learning. Not an issue for us. We're already there, fortunately. And so our job is to maintain now, not to necessarily expand in-school opportunities or synchronous opportunities for students. As to the warrant articles, we're looking at the town manager's part of his warrant article that typically over some years now has included $900,000 for the Concord Public School buildings, the facilities. Last year we came in under that amount, and we're looking at that again. There are other warrant articles from previous years that came close to being moved and weren't, and they're getting another look at the regional level. For example, a few pieces to finish up that construction that should have been 100% in 2015 and might be 99.9 right now. A few items remain. As far as the middle school is concerned, we've heard a few references to that. We have on Monday night, this coming Monday, the 25th, sandwiched between the select board meeting and the caucus, a 5 p.m. community forum. And it'll be recorded, it'll be a webinar, but we do encourage people to come to that. I can give you the link because PR, I think, is a little compromised right now. We don't have all of our usual channels open for communication. If you have a pencil and you want to write down the link, I'll give it to you now for Monday at 5 to learn about the project and its magnitude. The ID is 946 5785-1198 and a password of 454760. I don't see this posted as a meeting because it's not a meeting. So unfortunately, it's not in the town's website as such, but it's probably on the middle school page. And you can, if you go to concordps.org, there's a quick link to the building project. In addition to that, the full building committee meets again on Feb 4, 7:30 in the morning. There are meetings with subcommittees, in particular, the design subcommittee, which will be meeting this Friday, the 22nd, 7:30. That's a posted meeting. And the sustainability group is also meeting to prepare for that Feb 4 full committee meeting. And I think that's, and of course, we're deeply engaged in not only the warrant article conversations, but the budget for next year, with hopes that our budget can be predicated on the expectation that we will return to somewhat normal operations, but we're still going to have the alternatives ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah and Court.
I've got a quick question for Sarah or Court. I see in the town website, the COVID dashboard shows more than a dozen active cases at the high school. And that's larger than it was a while ago, but it's also maybe 10 days out of date. Is that concentrated in a particular class or group or spread throughout, or what do we know about the?
Good question. The good news is we, after these many weeks of tracking, and we have our own school dashboard, which is easy to find. Right now, we're approaching about 100 cases cumulatively over time. And the good news is we have not found that A, these are clusters, or B, that these are sourced in the schools. That doesn't mean it won't change tomorrow, but right now we're guardedly optimistic about the efficacy of our control efforts.
Court, does your dashboard show active as well as cumulative? Because there is often a very big difference between what's active and the cumulative.
Yes, it does. It does. You will see the total number from day one through the present, and you will see the actives.
Thank you.
Linda, could I ask a question of Court, please?
Sure.
Court, this is related to this building committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, Tim Holt was the chair of the finance subcommittee, and he's backed away from his co-chair role. So I wondered if that subcommittee has met recently, or has a complete complement of committee members.
So answer, no, we have not replaced Tim. We were first uncertain whether Tim, who did such admirable work for us, so we were very sorry to see him leave. We understand that it was necessary for personal reasons. He not only left his post as chair, but has in fact left the committee. So I believe the number by select board charge was 17. That would mean we now have 16. So that's something that the two now co-chairs need to discuss with select board as to whether there will be another appointment. As to the finances, we're working on a $1.5 million budget for design and schematic. My best guess, don't quote me, is maybe we're approaching the $900,000 mark at this point. We are guardedly optimistic that we have the money to pull off the remainder of the tasks that fall under that budget, notwithstanding the 9-month pause. That means restart, which we're in now. Restart has some probably minor duplication costs as we redo what we were doing in February and March, again now in January and February of 21. The school committee does expect and has recently asked for formal reports on the finance situation for the project, and we'll be putting that formal request to the co-chairs of the building committee so that those finance numbers come our way, school committee way. And they'll also be reported out, of course, at the February 4 meeting. They were not complete and detailed at our last meeting, simply because folks weren't ready to present it, unfortunately. But there'd been little movement since the last report out on finances.
Thank you.
Cord, I'll just also point out, as you well know, you can contact Erin Stevens for news and notices on the town website for the forum, if that hasn't already been done.
Yeah, I suspect Heather Bout has done so, but I'll double check that as soon as this meeting's complete. Good reminder. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, okay. Lise. Good morning.
Good morning. Lise Holdorf, Agriculture Committee. We don't have any major news to report. We are continuing developing a plan for an alternative to our annual spring outreach event, the Spring Forum. And we are working on developing some demos and tours at various farms around town that will hopefully be broadcast by Minuteman Media Network. We have no warrant articles, and we have 5 full committee members and 1 associate, so we have no quorum issues. And I think that's it for us.
Good, thanks for that succinct report. Melissa, good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you. I think, as I mentioned before, we do intend to submit a warrant article that will address 2 items to update our delay bylaw. One would change the date from which the delay is invoked, and the other applies to structures that would be 50 years old or older. The other thing we're doing is working to develop a comprehensive update to the Historic Resources Master Plan. Some of you may be familiar with this document, and other documents that support it. It was completed in 2001. There was an update to West Concord in 2013, but it's not very easy to use. It also doesn't exist anymore. We don't have any more copies of these. So I'll be working with particularly Anka Voss from the Library Special Collection, developing kind of an RFP and a proposal for how to go forward. And I do expect to submit an application to the CPC next year to help pay for this project. The other thing, I've asked all members of the Historical Commission to identify which other commission that they will actively observe in order for us to better understand what's going on, say, in the Planning Board, Zoning Board, Agricultural Committee, HDC. That's about it.
Thank you, Melissa. Alice. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I am the chair of the Light Board, and we will have a warrant article as we have each year. We will be submitting our budget. We had a special budget meeting in December, and I can't go through all the numbers. I'm happy to do so at another time if you're interested. But we had a rough year this year. We did not meet our budget expectations. We did not take in as much revenue. And so next year, our budget is going to be a balanced budget. In terms of assisting with the COVID response, the Light Plant is still working on a split shift. It has 2 teams, A and B. They are kept separate to be COVID safe. And so when new projects come up, like designing and electrifying the structure at the high school for vaccinations, it takes a great deal of effort on the part of the Light Plant to be able to do that. They were able to set it up, get it ready, electrify it, and that was part of the team that made that possible. Other issues that the Light Plant is thinking about right now are a review of the incentive programs that they offer to Concord residents. Where people may like some of these projects, we have to think about whether they are cost effective and whether they are efficiently returning on investment for greenhouse gas reductions. And so that analysis is starting now. We had a review of the uptake of the program at the last meeting, so we'll take it to the next level. And the next big thing is that the Light Plant is, the Light Board is undertaking a process of goal setting. As an observer to the Light Board before I joined for several years, I don't recall there being a similar process being undertaken by the board. So this is a starting from ground zero, and we'll begin with a reviewing of the strategic plan to make it's time for it to be updated, including a review of the vision statement of what the Light Plant is to the community and its role in the town, and then establishing the goals for the short term, which there are quite a few that the board members and the Light Plant have in mind for this year. So it's a very busy agenda, and that's it.
Alice, can I just ask you a quick question? At the Finance Audit Committee meeting yesterday, a question came up about whether the policy for the loan between broadband and CMLP had been finalized and approved, or is it still in draft form?
I believe that is fully approved and is in the budget for this year. And it's a formality more than anything else. It just codifies what the existing relationship is between the broadband and the Light Plant parts of the business itself.
Okay, good. We just needed to know that it was finalized. Thanks. Okay, let's see. What we've got here next. Richard, are you representing the committee today?
Actually, I went for Richard.
Yeah, okay. Nat did my thing. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's see who we've got here. Lindsay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I don't have too much to report on behalf of the library committee. We do have an unexpected vacancy to address. It should not impact our quorum, and we're optimistic that we will have, have a proposed replacement to the select board after our meeting later this month. So we will try to move that through quickly. We are also continuing work on the administrative code and working with the corporation and the Friends and the sustainability committee in town to continue discussions about formulating the strategic plan for the library.
So Lindsay, you're not ready to bring the revised code to the select board yet?
Not yet, Linda. We had our meeting last night was postponed until next week. So I'm optimistic that we will be able to, finalize the recent changes by the conclusion of next week's meeting, and then send everything over to you all in the select board for consideration.
All right, good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Kristen. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Kristen Ferguson from the Planning Board. We've got about 5 or so articles that we're moving this year. One is the 2-family and residency bylaw for that we didn't do at last year's town meeting. We are updating a couple of things like the floodplain conservancy district because we are mandated to make some changes. We're looking at the groundwater conservancy district. So our town planner is kind of working on those details with other departments. We're also looking at our earth removal bylaw to make sure it includes fill, and also that it gives the boards enough language to write a defensible decision and make an objective decision based on what's in the bylaw. And we are also right now looking at how well our FAR bylaw is working and whether there should be changes made to that. And, all of that is within the context of, going in the direction of the long range plan and making sure that we're working towards sustainability in our buildings and development and usage as well. The planning board approved a subdivision in West Concord, primarily because we didn't have the language not to approve it. And so one of the things that we hope to happen in the next 2 years is to have some funding approved to work with a consultant. We're overdue on updating our rules and regulations for subdivisions. And we hope that that next update will include language that allows the planning board to exercise that judgment better and gives us language to use. So those are the things we're working on for this town meeting and also kind of in the next year or two.
Okay, and the Thoreau Depot revisioning, will anything related to that come to the?
Oh, that's a good question. And actually that reminds me of something else. So no, it's not going to be on this town meeting. If anything, you know, we might request a special town meeting in the fall, but we are kind of continuing to move towards that, but we know we can't rush it. We're meeting again with the consultant who's been working with that in February. And we really haven't had much input from the building owners there, and that concerns me a little bit. So I'd like to make sure that we hear from them before we kind of propose these changes. And then the other thing that, you know, perhaps others on these committees here is for the, you know, upcoming years, we received a presentation from Alice and Gary Kleiman on some folks who've been working on kind of net zero or what the next generation of building codes or things might look for. And that's an oversimplification, but, you know, ways that we can make changes in our bylaws that are within the allowable changes that move us towards sustainability. And so one of the things that the planning board is going to do, probably not before town meeting, is work on the definition of net zero and what that means to, you know, our town. And then we can kind of work on how we can make changes and support that going forward. So, you know, we're going to hopefully work with the Sustainable Energy Committee and any other committees and certainly the Sustainability Director on kind of defining that and presenting that to the town.
Okay, thank you very much. Julissa.
Excuse me, Linda, I have to step away at 10 for a meeting with state funders. Could I?
Okay, go ahead, Jean.
Report? Thank you. Jean Goldsberry from the Commission on Disabilities. We have been working on a couple of issues at our last meeting. One is an ongoing one that we've been discussing with a group of individuals from Concord who have hearing loss. And they're hoping for the town to be able to sort of step up its efforts to ensure that people with hearing loss are able to fully participate in town meeting, of course, but in all kinds of meetings. So I know that they're hoping to come before the select board within the next month to discuss this a bit. And we're certainly fully supporting them. The other item that we discussed at our last meeting was the White Pond improvements and accessibility features that are being added to ensure that pond and both the upper and the lower parking areas are accessible to people with all kinds of abilities. So I know that's still a work in progress. In terms of our committee, we are full at 9 members. And we do not have any warrant articles to bring. On another note, not necessarily the committee, but something I'm sure Deb Green would want to hear about. Minuteman Arc had our first vaccine clinic last Friday. It was run by CVS and we vaccinated over 150 people. People from our residences, congregate care that are considered in group 1 and the staff who work with them.
Thank you, Jean. Good information. No, Juliska, I'll come back to you with my apologies. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, all. I just wanted to make a quick update. We still we're at our quorum right now for our meetings, but we are short 2 people, so we do need to fill 2 seats. So I'm going to talk about proposing a number that they're short for later on. We have one individual who is just joined our committee, and unfortunately, it can be called away, so he doesn't know if he'll be here. He cannot be available for the next 4 weeks, and it may be longer than that, maybe extended. I did want to let this meeting, let everybody know that we, as the celebrations committee, are planning on having the Christmas Day parade, and still moving forward, and hopefully the city on citizen news items in the paper and on the Concord Cat. But I am also learned that Lexington is hosting a virtual People's Day parade. And I'm not sure what that means exactly. So there's a meeting tonight, and I can update people about that potentially in our next meeting. But we are working with additional towns to sort of expand, not necessarily, we don't know where we're going to be this year. I'm receiving applications for People's Day Parade, and people do want to participate, but I do have a lot of people who just are not comfortable, right? We don't know where the future's going to hold for that. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and hopefully I'll have more news on the next meeting. So thank you.
And feel free to be in touch with your select board liaison prior to that, so that we can stay on top of how to proceed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
our liaison has been, I've been CCing on all communications referring to this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, you were a little bit garbled, but I think we got the gist of what you were trying to convey. So
okay, thank
yeah,
you.
Thank you, Ed.
Good morning, Ed Nardi, representing the Natural Resources Commission. I think for the most part, business as usual, single family renovations, additions, and the like. And at the last meeting, we got a great update from Pam Rockwell, StarMet Reuse Committee. And obviously we're excited to see, some real potential for conservation as well as trail expansion on part of that property. So we appreciate the update and staying in the loop. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you. Elizabeth, good morning.
Good morning. Business as usual at the zoning board as well. A couple of applications of note. There's an application for us for an accessory dwelling and expansion of a house at Windmill Hill, which we are going to be looking at for potential implications to the view overlooking the cemetery there. And the second one is the Country Club, Concord Country Club, which is dealing with a bunch of boards since they did a great deal of unauthorized clearing and work in groundwater conservancy district, and they are expect to be back. We expect they'll be back to us in February to, I hope, have some sort of solution for what they've done. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that I've overlooked here representing the committee who would like to speak? Peter.
Yep, just quickly, thanks, Linda. HDC, we're processing applications at the usual effective and occasionally entertaining pace. But because construction slows down in the winter, we're reviewing our guidelines and attending other folks' meetings. And now we filled our 10th slot, so we're fully full up. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Hard to follow everyone on this crowded screen here, so I apologize for not calling on you sooner. Okay, anyone else who would like, who hasn't had an opportunity to speak, who would like to?
Can I say something, Linda?
Yes, please.
Jim Burns. Excuse me, I'm a member of the Concord Housing Development Corporation, and one major activity that's going to take place shortly when the next edition of the report by the StarMet Using Planning Committee will be used in order for the members of the committee, all of whom will take a careful look at that and then provide a view of what they say and see about the report and provide that information to the committee. To some extent, I'm saying to some extent what Paul was talking about when we started, but basically we'll be able to provide some information from a group of people who are particularly involved in housing. So that's a major item that they will work on shortly. That'll be in a couple of days, I believe, that the new report will be available. The other thing I think I should mention is that connected with Christopher Heights, which most of us call Junction Village. And that is that a document called Roadmap to Closing was developed recently by Liz Rust that will be used to a vehicle to help direct the activities for getting Christopher Heights on its way. And it just came out a few days ago. It looks very powerful. There's more involved in it than I can comprehend in a short period of time, but it looks as if it will be a real vehicle to help direct that product. So that's it.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Linda, it's Tui.
Yes, Tui.
I don't know if anyone else had this problem. I just wanted to mention that at our meeting last on Thursday last week, we had an interloper crash our meeting without any visuals, who was stating sort of racist comments and sort of cursing people, and had some personal information about some of the members. And Chairman Tom Martin reported that to the police, who said they were coordinating with the Acton police, who had had a similar incident. I don't know if anyone else had that in their meetings, but we're following up on that.
So Tui, in addition to working with the police, did you report it to Jerry Romano in the town manager's office?
Good question.
Tom Martin did reach out to me about it, so I was aware of it, and he told me he was working with Acton and Concord police, so he did reach out.
Very good. And so I know that there have been some other interruptions, at least a couple that I'm aware of, and there may be some suggested steps that should be immediately taken when you find yourself in that situation. I know that in one of the meetings, we immediately stopped the Zoom. I asked all participants to exit, and then we resumed in about 5 minutes. And that, at least in that instance, we were able to proceed. But that is something that maybe Jeremy and the police can give us some recommendations on how to handle should we encounter this in the future. But I know it does happen time to time, and it happens in other communities as well.
Linda, I hope you follow up on that. I'd like a clear set of instructions. It's happened to me, not in a town meeting, but in work meetings, and it's beyond horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perhaps Jeremy could check with Zoom. They may have some security suggestions that we could follow.
I think in our case, one of the difficulties is if we bail out on a meeting and then send the members the link, then we proceed, but it's no longer a public meeting.
Mm.
And I don't know how that complicates open meeting law.
Yeah.
Interesting question. I do think that there are some Zoom tools for the host of the Zoom meeting to kick out a particular participant. But that requires the host to take that action, and that's typically not the committee chair. But that should be something that is doable on Zoom.
Yeah, with a high degree of readiness to do it, because typically we're so shocked, it's hard to move fast.
That's an excellent point, because I've seen that as well. Yeah. All right. So Jeremy, and Jeremy will look into this as well, and then there'll be further discussion about this in other quarters as well. So thank you very much. We've expended a great deal of time, but it's been worthwhile, and we'll see everyone, if not at the caucus, certainly you've got the preview dates on your calendar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.